Happy Thursday, Penguins fans. January 19th. The Penguins were not able to continue their winning ways from Monday. They dropped a loss to the Ottawa Senators 5-4 on Wednesday night, a very chaotic overtime loss. They get the point, but maybe didn't deserve it. But, they lose another one. And this one will sting because they could have won this game in regulation, to be honest. Even though they didn't deserve to win, they had chances towards the end of the third period to win. And Jake Gensel hit a post, had a couple of other chances, but, Brady Tkachuk's overtime winner was the main difference. I have a guest for this episode, Alex Metzger of Last Word on Hockey, and he also hosts the Last Word on Senators podcast joining. He has not joined the show before, but we're going to recap this game and then do a small preview for Friday's game, as this will be a home and home, of course, between these two teams. It's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at @Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. There's BetOnline, where the game starts. Joining me now, though, is Alex Metzger of the Last Word on Senators podcast and Last Word on Hockey in general. Funny enough, I used to write for the site about a few years ago, but, I've changed some things up. But, we've stayed in contact since. Alex, thank you so much for joining me. What a chaotic game between these two teams. A 5-4 win for the Senators in overtime. Brady Tkachuk's goal was a difference. I feel like we got to start with the special teams. I think that was the main difference in this game. The Penguins had a couple power play goals, but Senators, they had more power play goals than the Penguins, and they also made the Penguins penalty kill look pretty foolish at times. This was a unit that coming in ranked fourth, in the league, and the Senators power play took it to school throughout this one. What did you make of the special teams battle tonight? What do you think the Senators were doing to really take the Penguins PK out of it?
Hey, Andrew, thanks for having me. First of all, it's been a while, but I'm really happy to be joining the podcast. And absolutely crazy game tonight. It's funny enough. I think this is, for people who haven't followed the Ottawa Senators this year, the power play has been the one thing that they have been able to rely on throughout games to win them some hockey games, especially as they've gone through a bunch of injuries. Their bottom six, frankly, doesn't have a bunch of guys who should even be in the NHL, if we're being completely honest, as full-time players. But despite that, it's been a hot power play that's helped them get to where they are, and that happened tonight as well. They're ranking fourth in the league at 27.38%, and they added so many weapons this year that it's the ability to have not only just a good top unit that moves the puck around efficiently, but also now with Josh Norris making his return tonight, have a second unit with guys like Brady Tkachuk on the second power play at times. Claude Giroux, obviously, Pens fans will be very familiar with him and how he moves the puck around. And even, a guy like Jake Sanderson, who's a rookie in the league and not many people might know, but he's a really good puck distributor as well. So, and then on that top power play, you have Alex DeBrincat, who's just got a lethal shot. Drake Batherson on the other side, who's got a shot. Josh Norris is another great shooter. You have Tkachuk, who can mix it up in front of the net. This Sens power play has just really been able to provide themselves with a lot of weapons that makes them so multidimensional. And I think that showed tonight against the Pens penalty kill, which, as you mentioned, it's not like it's a bad unit or anything like that, but when you have so many options for who can shoot the puck, it just makes it so hard to defend, and we really saw that tonight.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that as well. I thought the Penguins also played a little too passive for my liking. It was kind of like similar to the way they played against the Rangers in the playoffs, where they go up against what was, I think, the best power play in the league last season, and they just kind of backed off of it. They let them do what they want, and that's what I kind of saw from the Senators tonight. They weren't really blocking shots, getting into the shooting lanes. The Senators were making it very easy with their zone entries. I honestly found it so funny watching the Senators power play gain the zone with ease, because the Penguins, that's the exact opposite of what they're doing on the power play. It's just, they make it so hard on themselves with that drop pass, and then they go to the boards and the puck is just going down the other way. With the Senators, their zone entries were so clean. I think they took the Penguins by surprise, and they were able to do whatever they wanted. Sure, they got a couple of bounces, but, they were red hot on the power play tonight. And it was also very rare that you see a team get 9 to 10 power play opportunities. The Penguins, funny enough, Alex, they did have 9 power plays against the Devils just a couple of weeks ago. And, everyone's saying, oh my God, this, oh my God, that. Well, they got karma'd in this one, 9 to 10 power plays. Officiating, definitely suspect, but, it's typical NHL stuff. I'm not really too surprised. What I was surprised, though, was 9 to 10 power plays for a team. It's just something you don't see every day. And it just makes this game so hard to truly evaluate because half the game I felt like was spent on special teams because the Penguins, I believe, had almost 4 to 5 power plays as well. So, definitely a weird one overall. That's in my opinion.
Yeah, it was a trip to the box tonight, right? I thought there was definitely a couple weak calls. That cross-check on Joseph there, Pierre-Olivier Joseph. That was, I thought, one of the weaker calls I have seen in a while. And then it's weird too because there was the double minor for high sticking, the double minor for the hook, which I get, not happy about, but it sounded like he was chewing out the ref for about 2 minutes there. So maybe you shouldn't be surprised when you get an extra 2 for that. But yeah, it was a bit of a mix of, I definitely don't think the refs were great. That's for sure. But there was also some undisciplined hockey on both sides of tonight. I thought the play, Josh Norris hitting Malkin, that was a pretty bad hit. I know people will try and say, oh, he turned at the last second. The onus is on the hitter. You can't be hitting a guy, shoulder to like almost back and head first on the boards. And then even on the power play there, was it the most vicious trip against Malkin to set up a 5-on-3? No, but when a guy's coming through with speed, you got to know you can't stick your foot out to trip the guy. So, it was a weird one in terms of it didn't really feel like we got much flow at 5-on-5 either way. It was with so many penalties, it kind of just felt like they were chipping and chasing and getting the chances here or there at 5-on-5, but then we were ultimately almost just waiting for the next penalty to happen and come around, a couple minutes later, which really made for, a very strange game at the 5-on-5 level. That's for sure.
Yeah, when the game was at 5-5, I still thought the Senators were the better team. I go on natural stat trick, obviously, and check every game. At 5-5, the Senators had 63% of the shot attempts, 59% of the scoring chances, and 63% of the high danger chances. They even when the game was at 5-5, I thought the Senators were the better team. But, the Penguins did push back in the third period, especially after they tied it. I was saying in my intro, Alex, Jake Gensel probably buries that chance 9.9 out of 10 times at the end there. I think they got really lucky that he did not bury that. He's just had a little bit of a weird year by his standards. I predicted he was going to get close to 50, if not 50 this season, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen right now. But I think Friday's game will probably feature more 5-on-5 plays, so we'll really get to see just, how good they stack up against each other at evens and not with special teams, to say the least. But, that was the big story of this one. Coming up in the next segment, we're going to get into the goaltending and how I thought, both goalies tonight were, I would say Cam Talbot was a bit iffy, but, Casey DeSmith, I didn't really like, that last goal that he gave up in overtime to Brady Tkachuk. So we're going to get into that coming up right after this. But first, if I can get my beautiful BetOnline promo up here. It's your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football to college bowl season to basketball and the World Cup, we've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. You can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. That is BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I'm back on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes, all the show's Twitter at @LR_Penguins. This is Alex Metzger of Last Word on Hockey and the Last Word on Centers podcast. So, Alex, goaltending I also think was a big story in this game as I teased going into this. Cam Talbot definitely looked a little shaky in net. I did not like that Mark Friedman goal that he gave up, just kind of flubbed in, to be honest. I thought he could have done maybe a little bit better on the Malkin goal early on. And then honestly, the Raquel one, kind of, I wouldn't say it was, I would say it was a fortunate balance with the Penguins because it bounced right off of them. And I don't know how much Talbot could have done with that, but definitely looked a bit weak. And then for Casey DeSmith, I understand that puck deflected off Marcus Pettersson, and I did not like Pettersson kind of backing off Tkachuk there. He needs to be more aggressive, I think, on that play and actually step up, because that's when he's at his best, in my opinion. But, what did you think of the goaltending in this matchup?
Yeah, I think it's probably fair to say, even though, as you talked before the break there, the Penguins had that 3-minute shift right at the end where I can't believe they didn't score.
Yeah.
They were all over. But I think it is fair to say Cam Talbot gifted the Penguins a point tonight. That was 3 of some of the worst goals I've seen a goalie let up in terms of looked like there was a hole in his glove for the first and third goals, like the Friedman goal especially. I don't know how that went in. I watched it 3 times and it hit his glove straight and just it went in. I was like, I'm watching and I go, what on earth? And then the fourth goal, I get it's tough, and the broadcast here on Sportsnet that I was watching, they were trying to defend Talbot for it as well, and they were like, well, it takes a deflection and then the shot comes. It's like, okay, but the shot was still at his shoulder. Like, I don't know how that one went in either. So it was not a good game for Cam Talbot. For Casey DeSmith, I thought he played all right. I saw you were on Twitter. You weren't too happy with his game. Definitely, I think it's a case of you might want him to have one of the couple that he gave in terms of it'd be nice to get a save. But I do think he made a couple really big saves throughout as well in terms of Thomas Chabot got in on a half breakaway at one point, and he made a nice save. Pinto had a nice chance right in the slot as well in the third period. He made a really nice save on. There was 3 or 4 in the second and third period, especially where I think, it was kind of a lot of the times when the Penguins had some zone control and then the counterattack of Ottawa caught them the other way. And it came back on an odd man rush that I thought DeSmith played made really nice stops on those. So the last goal definitely wasn't ideal. It was a decent shot, but I thought overall Talbot, I mean, he's not getting a start on Friday night. You guys, the Pittsburgh Penguins will be seeing Anton Forsberg. I can almost guarantee that. But from the Casey DeSmith side of things, he played fine. I think he made some good stops. I don't think most of the goals were to blame of him, but it wasn't like he was absolutely standing on his head either, I guess is how I would phrase it.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think some of the goals tonight he really did have no chance on, especially I think the 2 power play goals that when Ottawa, they had that double minor, and that was the one that they made it 2-1 after Jason Zucker opened the scoring, who's just been fantastic this season. Those 2 I definitely did not blame him on. A couple others, all right. I just didn't personally like, excuse me, the Brady Tkachuk one, because I thought he was just playing, I think, a little too deep in his crease there. Just wasn't as aggressive enough. And trust me, I get it. Pettersson, it went off him and in, kind of a little bit of a flub shot, but still, I feel like he probably would want that one back. I think Jari, if he's in, I don't know if that goes in just because, he's the starter, DeSmith's the backup, but it's just unfortunate that he couldn't make that save to see if he could give his team more of a chance to, go back down the other end, because, the Penguins, they've really struggled in overtime this season coming into this game, Alex. 3-6 in overtime / shootouts, 3-7 now. Very uncharacteristic for a team with all that firepower, to say the least. So I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. From a true Penguins perspective, some of the lineup choices for Mike Sullivan tonight, or just deployment issues, I should say, were very odd. Continuing to ice Jeff Carter just makes me do this basically every single shift, especially late in the third period. Ottawa's pushing, and they're having a really good shift in that final minute, and you're icing Jeff Carter and his line out there. Are you trying to intentionally tank when you're in a playoff race? I know the Islanders are losing to the Bruins at the time, and they did end up losing to them, so the Penguins are now 1 point ahead of the Islanders, and they're 3 points behind the Capitals, and they have a few games in hand on both. But it's just like, why are you not icing your, one of your better lines at that time so you can roll with the other line to start overtime? It just did not make any sense to me. And then Carter got walked. I believe that was by Chabot, if I'm not mistaken. And they get a beautiful scoring chance with about 30, 45 seconds left. That could have ended the game right there. So I just don't understand what goes through Sullivan's head with that. I think he's just, catering to the veterans a little too much for my liking. I just, I didn't understand that. Much like Ottawa's bottom 6, Alex, that you were talking about, I think you said a lot of those players are just not NHL players. It's not that bad with the Penguins, but it's close, because Jeff Carter should just not be in this lineup right now. Kasperi Kapanen has a few good shifts every now and then. The fourth line and just both lines are totally non-existent. And it just makes the Penguins rely on their top six to win every night. And it's just not a sustainable form of success.
Yeah, it's funny because, you're telling me everything I've heard with Ottawa this year, too. If their top six isn't running this year, they're not winning games. It's as simple as that. And, I look from a Pittsburgh perspective tonight and just something that flashes, right? Even when you're just on natural stat trick here is they're dressing a guy in Jonathan Gruden. And I'll be totally honest, I don't know much about him as a Sens fan, but he played a minute 55 at 5-on-5 in this game. Like, it just – if you can only be playing a guy a minute 55 in the game, and I get it, like there was a ton of power plays and stuff like that. So, I'm sure that did disrupt the game flow a little bit and all that stuff. But like, if you're playing a guy under 2 minutes at 5-on-5 in a game, it's like, man, you're almost lighting up a roster spot there.
I don't know what the point of that was. Like, you call him up for his first game against Anaheim. You're actually playing him in a third period when the game is really close. But yet tonight, even though there's a lot of special teams, you're icing him for 3 to 4 minutes. What is the point? And, I love Mike Sullivan. I think he's a great coach. That said, I have been criticizing him a lot more this season, just because of his deployment issues. He still thinks Brian Dumoulin is 27-year-old Brian Dumoulin and not the 30 to 31-year-old that he is now. He still thinks Jeff Carter is prime Jeff Carter and not the almost 40-year-old version that he is now. And, the refusal to play some of these younger players and I know there's not a lot down in Wilkes-Barre. Trust me, I'm not naive to the fact that the Penguins don't have a lot of prospects. It's just not been the case in this Evgeni era. But when you have a guy that you call up 2 games into it and you're playing him 3 minutes, that does not make any sense to me at all. I don't understand that at all. But, I was speaking from an Ottawa perspective, Alex, was impressed by their top six tonight. And I said that on my preview for Wednesday's episode. Love their top six. Their bottom six is a bit weak. Their defense is a little weak outside of Sanderson and Chabot. I felt like their goaltending has been a mixed bag. But, man, that top six can play. I felt like they had a good scoring chance every shift. Those top 2 lines were out there, to be honest.
Yeah, it's the strength of their team, no doubt about it. And, you mentioned their defense. The right side of the defense is an absolute tire fire. Artem Zub is their best defender on the right side, and he's hurt right now. I like Zub, but he's at best an okay number 2 guy. And when he is like head and tails above everyone else, like Travis Hamonic and Nikita Zaitsev play normal minutes on the right side for them. Zaitsev's injured this year too. Jacob Bernard-Docker was playing tonight, and he looked pretty good as a young guy out there. But yeah, their top six it's the strength of this team, and it's funny, just as someone who gets to listen to just other people talk sometimes about Ottawa, they've obviously struggled. They had the summer up here, all the hype heading into the year, and they haven't lived up to that at all. And totally fair, that they fell flat. And I think some of the expectations were a little high anyways, but the top six has not disappointed. I feel like, look around the league, whether it's Calgary, Huberdeau's not performing. Out in Vancouver, they were disappointing, and JT Miller wasn't having a great year. There's no one in the top six for Ottawa you can point to that's having a disappointing year, unless you want to say Josh Norris, and it's simply because he dislocated his shoulder 5 games into the season and physically could not play until tonight. Yeah. But yeah, like Claude Giroux has been an amazing pickup for this team, both on and off the ice. He's playing at about a point per game, and he's playing second power play minutes, which he has never done in his career, and hasn't said a word about it. I know I got to tread carefully talking positive about Giroux on a Penguins podcast here, but aside from that,
was weird to see him without that gross orange on. I will say that.
I wanted to know if the hate is still there from Penguins fans for Giroux, or if now that he doesn't have a Philly jersey, is it a little different?
It's gone down, I think, for some people. It just felt so weird. I'm like looking at him out there, and I'm like, sure he's not a Flyer? Like, I saw him for 14 years throughout most of my childhood and my teenage years. I'm like, wow, that's just looks weird.
Yeah, it's still sometimes strange to me too. But yeah, and then the top six, I mean, DeBrinket's been a great pickup. There was a narrative that he started slow in the year, and like he didn't score a ton, but he was still point per game, and now he's getting his goal scoring touch back. He's back on pace for just under 30 goals this year, and like I think he could easily hit 30 goals if he keeps getting hot. And then Tim Stützle, who was just flying tonight. mark my words, he is going to have the Jack Hughes breakout next season. The hype that Jack Hughes is getting this year, Tim Stützle will get next year. He's a year younger than him. He was a third overall pick in the 2020 draft, but he's on pace, I think. So he hit 20 goals tonight. He's on pace for, I think, 85, 86 points now on the year. He has also become more of a defensively responsible center, too. He's not going to win a Selke anytime soon, but he's crafting his two-way game. Tim Stützle is the real deal, and he has been a treat to watch every single night this year. The top six, and then Drake Batherson as well. The top six is just it's a tough top six, especially when they're going. They can play with anyone in the league.
Yeah, it's loaded. And, I loved that trade for DeBrincat over the offseason. They traded a late first, and I forget what the other thing was. It might have been just the first.
It was the 7th overall pick, which is a high enough pick.
But, oh, yeah, my apologies.
Yeah, but for a 24-year-old 40-goal scorer, I mean, that's a price you're more than willing to pay. And then, it was a mid-second round pick and a late third, I believe, as well. And the third is next year.
Yeah, I mean, that's, even though it's the number 7 overall pick, I'm still doing that for a perennial 40-goal scorer who potentially hit 50 at some point. He is worth that. And then some. I'm just surprised they didn't get a roster player in return for him. But, yeah, their top 6 is loaded. It showed tonight. And, yeah, Stützle is awesome. Would not be surprised in the slightest, Alex, if he does have that Jack Hughes breakout next season. But that wraps up this second segment. Coming up to end the show, we're going to do a small preview for Friday's game and, what to expect and, just the keys for both teams to come out with a victory. But before we get to that, if you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me, when you just want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then, man, I've got just the thing for you. You got to try Built Bars. With Built Bars, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they are very delicious. You won't even think that they're good for you. They are perfect for your New Year's resolution. So you're probably wondering what makes them so good. Well, for starters, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how they do it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy, only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. If you're close to maybe like a Walmart, Sam's Club, anywhere, any that kind of store, just run in right now and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am Hunter Hodes. That is Alex Metzger of the Locked On Senators. The Last Word on Senators podcast. I apologize about that.
It's all good. The guys at Locked On Senators do great work as well.
Yes, no, they have a very good show. I will definitely say that. Let's wrap up this show, Alex. So these two teams meet again on Friday at PPG Paints Arena. Thinking about going, not sure. I'll just have to take a look at the tickets. But this is the second home and home that the Penguins have had this year. They had one prior against the Buffalo Sabres. They actually swept that one. They beat them both times. This one they'll be looking for a split. What from an Senators perspective, what do you think they have to do to get a win in this one? Because I feel like the Penguins are going to be pushing a lot harder in that game. And Alex, I do think they're going to get some guys back. Jeff Petry's getting really close. Chris Letang is getting close, and Tristan Jarry is also back on the ice. Would not be surprised to see all three in the lineup for that game.
Yeah, for Ottawa, I think it's consistency. They have really struggled to put multiple efforts in a row that, again, tonight, we mentioned that the Pens had some really good chances at times, but I thought Ottawa controlled the game for the most part. And I haven't seen Ottawa play that well multiple games in a row too many times this year. So if they want any chance on Friday night, the Penguins are going to come out much hungrier. It's going to have to be consistency and trying to repeat what they did tonight. And, a big thing that I'm worried about personally as a Sens fan on Friday that I think they're going to struggle doing Friday night that they did tonight is shut down Sidney Crosby. He had a couple really good passes still. But for a Sidney Crosby game, especially that I'm used to watching, it feels like he torches the Sens every time he plays them. He was relatively quiet tonight. Now, that's still an impressive compliment considering he had 2 passes that easily could have gone in for assists at the end of the game there. But, he got, not completely shut down, but he was on the ice for 21 shot attempts against and only 9 for. I don't think he's going to be posting a 30% Corsi 4% again on Friday night. I'm worried about that as a Sens fan. He's a guy that they obviously have to focus on. I mean, that's stating the exact obvious, but for the Sens, it's consistency, playing like they are tonight, and then looking for that goal, the save here or there that they didn't get tonight. If they get the goaltending that they had tonight again on Friday, they don't stand a chance.
Yeah, it's funny you do bring up Crosby. He's been struggling a little bit, Alex, over the last week, 10 days, just not playing like himself. I predicted on my Wednesday episode that he would be a force tonight. That did not come true. He just looks lost a little bit, which is very unusual. He's going to snap out of it. He's Sidney Crosby, after all. And I liked how you brought up, he usually torches the centers. I believe of all the teams that he's gone up against around the league, some of his best numbers have come against centers. It's not the Flyers level or the Islanders or the Rangers, but when he plays the centers, he usually plays very, very well. From a Penguins perspective, I'm saying the obvious, special teams. They've lost a special teams battle each of the last couple of games. They were very fortunate to win on Monday. They had all of the numbers in their favor when you look at natural stat trick, but they were also very sloppy on the ice. John Gibson played really well. Penguins almost lost to probably the worst team in the league, and they gave up 2 power play goals to the Ducks. That's unacceptable. The Ducks have one of the worst power plays, if not the worst power play in the league right now. And then, I know you're playing up against a top 5, top 6 unit in Ottawa. Still, giving up 3 power play goals, that's unacceptable. You need your penalty killers to bail out other players when they take penalties. They did not do that in this one. I think they're going to be fired up coming into this one. Right now, they've only killed off 8 of their last 17 penalties. Not good enough for a team that is top 5 in penalty kill right now. Early in the season, this unit really struggled, but since then, they were number 1 in the league for a few weeks. It's slipped down a little bit, but that needs to be a lot better. And the power play woke up a little bit tonight, but still, I want to see some better zone entries. Jesse Marshall, The Athletic, had a great article on Wednesday looking at just the issues of the zone entries and how that drop pass is just not working because teams are really doing their tape. And I saw Ottawa was doing theirs tonight, and they're being more aggressive, coming at the Penguins, and it's throwing them off their game. They need to just be better with that. Also, just getting some bodies back. They're getting some points right now. That's big. That's 3 out of 4 points. They could have gotten the extra one tonight. It stinks that they didn't, but they're still in a playoff spot right now. If they can get some of these bodies back on Friday, that should help some things. I think once they get a bit healthier, some of the problems are going to correct themselves. That said, they still need a better bottom 6. You need a third line center. Right now down there, it's not good enough, at least for me. I don't think they have this trouble of, struggling against younger, faster teams. I think it's just, they get off to slow starts, and I don't think they can ever just rebound from it. I thought at times on Wednesday, they were fine at 5v5. I thought other times they got smoked. That's just, the ebbs and flows of a game. But, I want to see them get off to a better start. I want to see the power play and penalty kill be better. And if Tristan Jarry starts and plays well, I think they can do enough to win this game. We'll have to see. I think they practice today, from what I remember seeing in the PR email. So we'll have to see if some of those injured guys get a full practice in. So yeah, I think that basically covers this one. Alex, if you have anything else to add, I'm not really gonna probably fully make a prediction for this one. If I had to, I think the Penguins bounce back, but I'm not really gonna fully make one right now. But if you have anything else to add, go ahead.
I'd probably lean Pens probably get one back here, but I just hope it's a good game. That's kind of, as a Sens fan who has watched some really bad hockey over the past 4 or 5 years, it's nice just trying to cheer for a team that you feel like might have a chance, even if they're still, 7-8 points out of a playoff spot. But yeah, I think it'll be a tightly contested game. I think it'll be a lot like tonight in terms of back and forth, but I think it'll be more in 5-on-5 than tonight.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't think you're going to see that many power plays called again. That's for sure. But Alex, I really appreciate you coming on for this Thursday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. We'll definitely have to do this again, especially after they play for the third time. Not really sure when that game is. I have to check the schedule. But we'll definitely have to do this again when they play for the third and final time. I believe that one is in Pittsburgh. This was their final game in Canada tonight from a Penguins perspective. But Alex, since this is your first time on the show, let all the listeners know where they can find you and where they can find your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So all my work's at lastwordonhockey.com. I have a podcast there called the Last Word on Sens podcast, which Hunter and I are actually going to go hop onto right now and record a second part of the back-to-back here. We're doing a home and home as well, so if you want to hear us talk probably more of a macro level than the specific games, I think is what we're going to do there. And then I also have another podcast called the M&M Hockey Podcast with my buddy Chase McCallum. We cover everything that goes on in the NHL weekly, so that drops every week around Wednesday or Thursday. But you can find all my stuff just on Twitter at NHL Sens and stuff. I love talking hockey there, tweeting hockey. You know, it's Sens stuff, it's football stuff, all kinds of stuff, and that's where you can find all my work. So thank you so much for having me today, Hunter. This was an absolute blast.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. Please, everyone, go follow Alex. He does a tremendous job covering the Senators and the league as a whole. And yes, his podcast with Chase is also very good. Chase is a great follow on Twitter if you're not following him already either. But again, thank you all so much for listening to this one from a Penguins perspective. Stinks they couldn't get the result tonight, but they'll have another chance on Friday. We'll see if they can play better in both special teams and 5-on-5. So again, thank you all so much for listening. I'll talk with you all on Friday when we do a full game recap episode for that one. Talk to you all then.